Hello folks, my name is John Follis, and today I'm going to be taking you through a bit about how I emboss documents. If someone were to give me some documents and whatnot, and so hopefully this whole video will be designed to take you through what I use and whatnot, and both hardware and software, how I go through it and whatnot. And I will warn you, my camera skills are not the best. I'm trying to get better about that, but hopefully I can make this video into multiple sections, so hopefully I'll have some timestamps as well. I've never done anything like this, so this be kind of a challenge. Exactly. So basically, yeah, so with that said, I guess we'll get started. So let's start with hardware. So this here is a Braille printer. There is many types. This is an older model of a Braille printer. This is a TSI Telesensory Incorporated VersaPoint. Another name to say it's a Braille Embosser, but it's the same thing. Basically what it is, it's like a regular printer. Instead of printing ink, it prints Braille. So here we have this is an older model. Like I said, they have newer models today of all kinds of make and designs and everything like that. But the problem is, for an average inkjet printer, of course, barring all the inflation today, which is a whole different subject matter, basically an inkjet printer costs around $35-40. But an embosser costs anywhere from maybe $2,000 to $3,000. There is one out there called the Braille Buddy, which is about $1,500. So these units are pretty expensive. I bought this thing back in 2011, and I found it for $1,000 off of eBay, and I didn't have to pay everything up front. But once I made the payments in small amounts and whatnot, they shipped it over to me, and here we are 2024, and it still works. The only thing, as you'll see, is the lid. Underneath the lid there used to be some foam there, but it was disintegrating, and so I had to take it out, and I was pulling foam chunks out of the machine so that it didn't cause any problems. But I'm sure if somebody wanted to, they could probably add some new foam in. I guess it helps to muffle the sound a little bit or whatnot, because these things are loud. And as you can see here on the back, it uses tractor-fed paper. It's a special type of paper, Braille paper. I believe you can use thinner paper, but it's not totally recommended and whatnot. But I'll get into some of the bolts and whatnot and how this thing functions and whatnot. So yeah. This is the unit that I use that prints out the material. Okay, so let's talk about the layout of this machine here, this particular model. Like I said, they have all kinds of makes and models and whatnot, but you're talking about this machine. This machine isn't too well known. This in particular went through 4 different models, Model A through D, and this one is Model D. And it used to be you would have to select the type of communications connection through the menus, but now it has a switch for that, and also the impact, the amount of impact it punches into the paper. Would have to select to the menus, but now it has a special knob that you could change just for that. So here we on the top of the machine. This is the lid, and it's got this. And like I said, this came from eBay, an eBay company and whatnot, and they refurbished it. This has some a printed label about how to load paper into the machine. I don't worry about that. And then there is a logo. It's just a bunch of raised print. Honestly, I'm not sure what it says, but yeah. Probably has this little logo. And then underneath the lid is, I'll get into that in a little bit, but is where the embossing carriage is and all the paper rollers and the tractor holes, the tractor clips are and whatnot. And then the paper feeds in from the front. It comes underneath this lid, underneath the embossing bar as it's punching. It's got 11 solenoid stylus pins that punch holes in the paper up against the metal bar, so it's punching on the underside of the paper, and then it feeds out. So and then it feeds out from this here, and it comes out this surface here with all the braille, and it trickles down and whatnot to the floor and whatnot. So that's the top of the unit. So now we'll go over to the right side here. Here's the control panel, the top right of the unit. So this is the control panel here. Now this thing has, it's got four buttons, 3 switches, and 1 knob. And there's also, you probably can't see it in the camera, but there's a tiny little LED light. I believe, looks like it might be a bit of a LED light, and it shines whenever the unit is on. Bit of a visual, if you will. Now, so, and this, again, some of the braille is a little messed up on here, but there is little dots here, little labels on the buttons on the controls to let you know what they are and whatnot. So what we have from top to bottom, we have, let me raise this up just a little bit here. Okay, so we have an AB switch, and what that does is that represents what each of these buttons do. So these buttons actually have 2 functions. So on the functions on the A side do what the buttons do on the A side, and likewise if you flip it over to the B, then the buttons have the secondary function. So from top to bottom, you have TF and MC. These are the buttons. TF on the left, MC on the right. And because the A section is on the left and the B section is on the right. And TF stands for top of form set. And MC stands for multi-copy. This unit has a bit of a multi-copy buffer of about 30,000 Braille characters. So maybe about 30 pages when considered. This thing takes 11.5 by 11 inch paper, which is standard Braille paper. It can go for narrow 8.5 inch by wide by 11 inch length paper. The standard size for Braille characters on the 11.5 by 11 inch paper is 40 characters per line, 25 lines per page. And the narrow one, the letter size is 8.5 by 11 inch paper, which is 32 characters per line at 25 lines per page. I prefer the standard. And this thing prints single-sided. Some units print double-sided, also known as interpoint, but I didn't really need interpoint. It's nice because it cuts down on the amount of paper, but that's more meant for like small booklets and whatnot. So, as I was saying with the buttons, so from A side to left to right side, top of form set and multi-copy. The second button is form feed on the A side, and on the right side, the B side stands for reverse feed. So when it's done printing, you would take the embosser offline and form feed it. It would eject the paper like a regular dot matrix printer, and then you tear the Braille material off. And then you would flip it to the B side and press RF in this case, and then it would retract it back into place. The next button is LF, and MU stands for line feed, which feeds the paper up one line at a time. I don't use that. But on the right side is MU, which stands for micro up. And then the very last button stands for RD and MD. RD stands for read. So you could pause the embossing to speed it up just for a little bit to view the current material that's being printed, and then you could press RD again to retract it back into place and continue embossing. And then MD stands for micro down. And now we come to the on and off switch here. This is the online offline switch. So when it's flipped to the left side, it's online, and then when it's flipped to the right side, it's offline. Online, it means it's ready to receive commands from the computer, and then offline means it's ready to receive commands from the control panel itself. And then the switch below that is your parallel and serial connection switch. On the left side of the switch is parallel, right side is serial connection. And then finally, this is a knob here, and then it has 5 different directions. It clicks as you turn it, and this is the impact level knob. So from far left to right, it is from, it's got 5 different selections. It's got from softest all the way to hardest. So I've had it on the second setting with the regular Braille paper, and I noticed that sometimes Braille would be just a little mushy on certain parts, so I flipped it over to a 3, and it seemed to be just fine, right in the middle. So I would think maybe perhaps position 1 if you had some regular dot matrix printer paper in there, and then a second position, maybe you might have some little thinner, almost construction style type paper with tractor holes in it. And then the third one is for Braille paper. The fourth one is for heavier cardstock paper. And I think the last one would be if you had some plastic labels with tractor fed sides on them, maybe Braille labels and whatnot. And because you would need to punch through those very hard. So, but I'm going to keep it at 3. Now on the right side of the unit, I know this is hard. It's gonna be, I apologize ahead of time. This is gonna be hard to look at here. You have the parallel connection, and then this thing takes a 25-pin serial cable inside the unit. There are 4 types of cables, of serial cables. There's 25-pin male, which has the pins, 25-pin female, which looks like a bunch of holes. And then they have 9-pin male, which is a smaller end with the pins, and a 9-pin female with the holes, if you will. And so I don't know if you can see that all that well with all my router and my other equipment in the way here. So that is the serial connection. It's already got a cable in there, and then parallel. For modern computers today, Windows 10, Windows 11, I recommend using serial. And if you don't have a serial connection, I recommend maybe getting a serial card, a PCI serial card. Like what I did is I shoved it in my computer, and I went into the control panel in Windows and set it up that way. But I think you could probably find a USB to serial card, and then go that way. And then here we go to the, let's go to the front of the unit here. So, no, I'm sorry, the front of the unit is where the paper is. Here's the back of the unit. I'm sorry, I'm getting my directions all messed up here. So, here we have the, we got this Braille label. It looks like a bit of a serial number, if you will. And then you have your power cord connected, the 110 volt. There's a little slider here next to it that allows you to switch between the port of 110 for here in the USA, or 220 volts for maybe if you're in the UK or Europe or any of those other countries. And then above all that, here is our power switch to turn the unit on. When the switch is in the up position towards the top of the unit, that means it's off. And if you flip it the other way, it turns it on. And then finally on the left side here, of course here we haven't looked under the lid, but on the left side of the unit here are all the vents, and this thing has a cooling fan in it, and it's a must. In my opinion, no Braille Embosser should be without a cooling fan, because these things, they're metal, they're hard plastic, they get hot, and without a cooling fan, it can overheat, and that's a cause for a disaster. So that's the so that is the overall the unit. The outsides of the unit, if you will. Okay, so let's have a look at underneath this lid here. So I'm going to take it off. Now I'll show you. Let me show you the lid first here. So this is where the foam used to be. Unfortunately, like I said earlier, I had to take out the foam because it was falling apart and getting inside the machine, and I didn't want any problems to happen with it. But again, I'm sure that you could probably put some new foam in if you wanted to do it that way. It seems to muffle the sound just a little bit, but I don't think it really does it that much, honestly, in my opinion. So that's the lid. So let's put that off to the side. Okay, and here we are. Now we have the underbelly of the unit, if that's proper terminology here. So here we have, we've got the tractor holes like a standard dot matrix printer. We have one on the left over here, and then we have one over here on the right of the unit. And these things, they can move. There's little levers on the back. I'm not going to flip the lever, but if you were to push this little piece of plastic, it's on the very side of it. If you were to push this little piece of plastic upward, then it would allow you to move it left and right. And then if you were to pull the piece of plastic back down, it would lock you into place. And that's useful for adjusting the width of the paper and whatnot. You can move the left side, the left tractor, as well as the right tractor, though. I don't recommend doing that because if you do that, it could get confusing and whatnot, and really cause the paper to be misaligned and whatnot. So if I was gonna adjust the width of paper or anything like that, I just use I just move the right tractor. And modern embossers, they actually have the left tractor locked, which I think is very smart. And then right here, this little piece here, this is a little wheel. I don't know if you can see that. I'm sorry if you can't. Is the you can roll it. If you were to move it back and forth, you can roll the paper manually back and forth. And then this bar here, this is the emboss bar. The carriage, it moves back and forth. I can move it back and forth if I wanted to while the unit is off. And so the paper, what happens to the paper, it gets clipped into these tractors here. There's little pins in the tractors because of the tractor holes on the sides. And then you would feed it through the unit. And then it would go underneath this Braille bar. And it would come out the other end. Onto this flat surface. Of course, it would trickle down, and etc. So that's in a nutshell the underbelly of this unit, of how this works. So I'll put the lid back on, and all that kind of good stuff, and it kind of goes on in a weird way. Make sure that there we go. All right, so now the lid's back on. So that, in a sense, that is the underbelly of the TSI VersaPoint. Okay, so let's go into software. In this case, I use Braille Blaster, which you can get from aph.org. Actually, no, it's from brailleblaster.org. I'll have a link in the description. And this is the software that I use. It's free, and it's a software that I use to translate regular text into Braille. And so if we go into, let's go to my hard drive here. I got a bunch of stuff on my hard drive here. And yes, I'm using eSpeak with NVDA. I'm going to show you, go into Braille documents here.
Items, new list. Church service, 5.30. Church service songs, 5.30. CC43-10. Church announcements for February 20. Church announcements for February 20. Church announcements for May 5th. Church announcements for May 5th, 2020. Church announcements for September 15, 2020. For ED 17 of 50. Confident vote.
I used to use a program called WinBT, which was a tough nightmare because you had to use a .txt file, and then you would put these different little codes in so that when it made the .brf Braille Ready file, it would format the document in a way that you can send it to the embosser based off the little special codes in the original text file. So that was a bit of a nightmare. But now I have a better way of doing that, and that is Braille Blaster. And it uses .bbz. I guess the older version of Braille Blaster used BX or something like that. I forget the name of it. It was version 1. But here now we have version 2.1. And like I said, I'll put a link in the description where you can go get this program. You can get it for Windows, Mac, and Linux. So I'm going to open this .bbz file, which is a Braille Blaster file. So it's taking a bit to open. Unfortunately. So there it is. All right. Okay, so NVDA tells me when I land into a body text, it's got different ways of formatting. I've got the church announcements and the date. I've got those centered, and everything else is just a body text. I'm not going to go through entirely on the entire use of Braille Blaster. I don't think it's necessary for this demonstration. But there is something I do want to show you, because what happens is Braille Blaster, it's great for textbooks and whatnot. If you were a Braille transcription and you were making a booklet for your student or whatever, you could actually use this. Or even if you were just some casual individual that had to convert a print book into a Braille book, you would use page numbers, and that's fine. But if you don't want to use page numbers, here's what you do. So you're going to go into your menu bar here. Go to Settings. Page Properties, I think is what we want. But now what's interesting is each of those settings opens up the main overall settings dialog, so you can actually tab through.
Translation settings, page numbers, selected.
Page numbers, no, that's what we want. I'm sorry, it's not page properties, it's page numbers is what we want. So if we tab, I've got all these set to none, so these are even Braille page. Typically with even Braille pages and odd Braille page numbers of the actual Braille sheet of paper, they're on the bottom right hand corner of the pages. And then the print page would be on the top right hand corner. And if the print page, what you would see is when you're reading a Braille textbook, you would see a set of line dots 36, 36, 36, 36 across the this big old line, and then it would reach to the very end of that line where it represents a new page number, and then all the subsequent numbers of page numbers would have A, B, C. First, so let's say, for instance, you're on page 1, and then all of a sudden you see a page 2. You'll see a blank. You'll see a line dash. If I call that in the middle of the page, it says page 2. That says print page 2, but you might be on Braille page 3. And then when you turn it over, you'll see 2A. 2, and then the next page is 2B, and then the following page might be 2C, and then all of a sudden you might see another line dash where it represents going from page 2 to page 3, print page 2 to print page 3. So No, I'm rambling on page numbering, but yeah, so if you think of it as a standard sheet of print paper compared to a standardized sheet of Braille paper, you know, standard being the 40 characters per line, 25 lines per page on 11.5 by 11 inch paper. The standard print page is 8.5 by 11 inch. So a standard piece of print page corresponds to 2 sheets of Braille. So that's how that works. So if you have 2 sheets of print paper, print material, that'll correspond to 4 sheets in Braille. Now, if you're using that letter sized 8.5 by 11 inch, 32 characters per line, 25 lines per page, in Braille it's gonna be twice as much. So for each page, it might be 3 to 4 sheets of Braille, and then for 2 sheets of paper, it might be 5 to 6 or whatnot. So it can be twice as much. And honestly, that's why I prefer the 11.5 by 11 inch of 40 characters per line, 25 lines per page. Because if you get way too many narrow sheets of Braille paper, it can be too hard to staple it or even keep track of. Okay. And then can I have your... So I set all these, the odd Braille page numbering. I even have the print page. All these are set to none. So I have all that set to none. No page numbering whatsoever. Alright. And so let's just say I've selected all my text from maybe an email or a PDF or whatnot, or a text document or maybe a Word document, which I don't have Microsoft Word on here. But it doesn't matter. You can get it from the internet. You would select all of it, copy it, paste it into Braille Blaster, and you can even have Braille Blaster open certain documents like HTML documents, Word docs, text files, etc. It does not do well with PDF files at all. But but either way, then you can come in here, and if you want, you can format it. There's a bunch of styles. If you go in here, styles, you go for the basic, block or body text, headings, lists, poetry, glossary, exercises, plays, a bunch of stuff in here. And then what you would do is you'd come in here after that, when you format your document and whatnot, after everything is set, then you go to emboss it. And you can print it too, send it to a regular ink printer. But if you do Control E, it brings it up to the emboss dialog. And that's my embosser here. I had to set up as a generic text-only printer, because that's how these work. Manage your embosser if you wanted to. You can create a debug file. I don't. And then you could set the page ranges, all or pages. Pages means you could specify. But I'm going to set it to all. From is set to 1. 2 is set to 1. Anywhere from 1 to, so if you wanted, you'd set it to the pages radio button. You make sure that's checked, and then you would come in to this edit field here, and let's say I just want to print out of a 30-page document. I just want to print from 1 page to 3 page. So you would set 1 in the from field and put the number 3 in the to field. Now, since it's set to all, these fields are all pages. These fields won't do anything. And then you could set the number of copies that you want, and then you can hit the OK button. As soon as you would do that, it would send the text straight to the embosser. So I'm actually going to cancel out of here by pressing escape. So that's in a very basic nutshell how I would take any document, put it up into a Braille translator, and then send it straight to my embosser. Okay, so here we get to the good stuff here. So we're gonna go ahead and power on the unit, the embosser here. make sure that everything is set, which it is. And so, like I said, we go to the power switch on the back of the unit. I'm gonna press it downward, because you press it, as I said earlier, you press it downward to turn it on and upward to turn it off, because it's like a rocker switch. Flip it one way to turn on, flip it the other way to turn off. Now, when I power on the unit, what it will do is you'll hear a little series of beeps, and the carriage will, as the carriage moves a little bit, and then it'll move the paper just a little bit. It's very quick, but more than that, you'll hear the fan kick on. It's got a very powerful fan in it. It literally takes about 5 seconds for the fan to reach maximum RPM, which is revolutions per minute. And then whenever you turn the unit off, it takes 30 seconds for the fan to fully stop. So it's a very powerful fan. It really is. And it's great. So here we go. I'm turn on the unit right now. 3, 2, 1. So here we are. The unit's powered on. And right over here, that's the fan. It blows air like a couple of feet away. It's amazing. So now that the unit is on, we could emboss. But before I do that, I'm going to show you what happens when you take off the cover or if it's running out of paper. So I've taken the cover off. So this is what it would constantly beep at you whenever it's out of paper or the cover is off. So you take the unit offline by flipping the switch, the online switch to the off position. And now, let's just say you ran out of paper. So what I would do is I would end up loading paper into these tractor holes here on the front of the unit, just like any standard tractor fed paper. Now I will warn you, when the unit is on, you cannot move the carriage back and forth, or you cannot use the paper wheel. You cannot move that up and down. I believe it creates some sort of magnetic field that if you tried very, 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 very hard to force it, you could probably end up with a terrible accident. That I don't recommend doing that. If you want to move the carriage manually back and forth, or move the paper roll back up and down, I recommend turning off the unit before you do that. But that's not to say that you can't load paper into the unit while it's on. What you do is you flip the AB switch, the AB function switch, to the B side. So I just did that now. And now the buttons that are labeled LF for line feed and RD for read on the two bottom buttons that are labeled on the left side. On the right side is MU and MD, that's micro up and micro down. And as I said earlier, those are to gradually move the paper up and down respectively. So I'll go ahead and move it up a little bit here. So you would hold it down, and when you let go of it, it stops. So what that does is you'll see it moves the paper up a bit. I'll do it again, hopefully you can get a better feel, a better view, hopefully. So I'm moving the paper up a bit with micro up, and then my MD, micro down, does the opposite, moves it back. So you load your paper in, like I said, with these tractor holes and these pins of the tractor holes, of the tractor clips, if you will, and then you would clip them downward, and then you'd use micro up and micro down functions to move the paper up and down until you get it into place. The idea is you want to make sure that the paper feeds so that it goes just underneath this embosser bar here, so that the solenoid stylus pins can punch the underside of the paper, and that's how you get Braille. I'm going to move this back in position. Ooh, that's a little too much. Whoops. Move it up just a teeny weeny bit here. So it's a bit of trial and error. Maybe a little more. Move it up just a teeny bit more. All right. And now and now it's in position, ready to emboss. Now it's in position, it's ready to emboss. So then what I would do is put the cover back on. So I'll go ahead and do this now. It's hard to hold the phone in your hand while putting the cover on the unit. I know the camera's probably panning all over the place, and I'm sorry about that. And this cover is very strange trying to get on. All right, I think we got it. So now that the paper is in position and whatnot, and sometimes I just like to double check by lifting the cover a little bit. So now that the paper is in position, I can now flip the AB function switch back to the A side, and this top button that says TF on the left side for top of form and MC on the right side for multi-copy, I would, because it's in the A position, now I can hit the top button for set top form, which it's not like those of you who've used the classic enabling technologies or other types of embossers. It doesn't like set the top form into place. It just, in this case, it lets the unit know, hey, now that I've moved the paper into the position that I want, this is the top form. This is what you will set it to. And then I put the embosser back online by flipping the off-on switch here on the control panel. And then you'll just hear it just move the paper back and forth just a little bit. So now if I wanted to test that out, what I could do is flip it back offline. And then the second button here, which says FF for form feed and RF for reverse feed, it's in the A position, so I'm going to hit FF for form feed. And then, you know, if you had Braille material, you would it would be hanging off of the paper here, and you just tear it off. You're basically just like a normal dot matrix printer or any printer with tractor fed paper. But then after you tear off the Braille pages, so you're left with this blank page right here, but you don't have to waste paper. So you flip it back to the function switch to the B side, and then that same button, that form feed button, says RF on the right side, which stands for reverse feed, which means it retracts the paper back into place. Now I like to lift the cover up just a little bit, just to make sure, just a little bit, so I kind of have it a little cockeyed on purpose, just so I can check to make sure the paper's in position. And it is. So now we flip it back to the A side. That's the AB function switch. And then what I like to do is, because this thing has a 30,000 character buffer in it, which, I mean, if you're printing stuff more than 30,000 characters, it'll just reset itself, clear out its buffer as new data comes in. I mean, it's not a big deal, but if you're using the multi-copy feature on here, you would want to take that into account. With 30,000 characters, Braille characters, altogether, I think it equates to, you know, 1,000 characters per sheet with the standard 11.5 by 11 inch paper, which equates to 30 sheets of Braille. But what I like to do just for good housekeeping is I hit the top and bottommost buttons. I press those together and then let go just to clear the buffer. And then I put the unit back online and it's ready for whatever next print job you have, if you will. Okay, so now I think you're ready for the good stuff here, the really good stuff here, where you see this thing in action. So this thing has 3 types of printing modes, and one of them I'm not going to bother showing because I think it's I don't use it. You have regular text mode, which is the default. There's graphics mode, and then there is the sideways printing mode, which I don't use. That would probably work on narrow paper better, and maybe if you had a big chart of some sort, you'd probably want to use that. But I don't bother with it. The standard of Braille, if you will, dots per inch is about 12.5 dots per inch. And then in graphics mode, it goes to 17 dots per inch. So that graphics mode is great for if you want to print out some pictures or whatnot. There are embossers out there that have much closer dots per inch than this does. But for what it is, it's a good unit. So it's not the best Braille graphics in the world, but it does pretty well. I've had a lot of fun with it, printing pictures for sighted people to have, and they really enjoy it a lot. Okay, so now I'm in Braille Blaster, and I'm sitting over here by the unit with a Bluetooth keyboard. So here I am in my document in Braille Blaster. This is a document, the church announcements that I have for this Sunday as of this recording. So what I would do is I hit Control E in Braille Blaster, and as I just demonstrated earlier what the dialogue looks like, if you will, I've got my embosser. I only have one embosser, which is all I need. I can manage the embosser. I don't need to do that. You can create a debug file if you wanted to. I don't. It's not checked. I've got it set to all pages because that's all. I don't need to worry about setting it the page range. And then you have the from and to edit fields for if you were going to use the page ranges. And the number of copies is set to 1. I don't need to adjust that. And then finally, the OK button. And as soon as I hit the OK button, this thing will start embossing. Now, I warn you, this thing is a bit loud. Okay? So, I'm going to hit OK. And here we go. It's going to print in text mode. And there it is. We have our Braille document. So I'm going to take the embosser offline, form feed. Now, you'll have to excuse me. I'm going to attempt to tear this paper off here. It's hard to do it with the phone in my hand, so bear with me. I'm sorry if the view looks all messed up. I kind of grab the paper by the top, and I find that where the closest perforation is, where the Braille meets the blank sheet, and I kind of use my index finger on my other hand to slowly kind of go up against the perforations and whatnot. And then what I'm left with on this sheet of paper is these tractor holes here. So, but now we have this blank sheet of paper. And so I'm going to flip it back to the B side for reverse feed. Okay, so now it's been retracted. So I'm going to clear the buffer, put it back online, and it's ready for the next print document. So it has these tractor holes on the sides. So I would normally tear these off, and then I would put those in the shredders here. So, but here we are with our Braille document. And hopefully I can put this up here. You won't be able to see it very well, unfortunately, but here it says I'll read a little bit here. Church announcements, Sunday, September 15th, 2024. That's this recording for tomorrow, as of this recording. And it says, number 1, this Wednesday evening, our Bible study will more than likely finish our study for the book of 1 John. The time will be at 7 o'clock p.m. and whatnot. And I'm not going to read all these here. The second one is the men's monthly breakfast meeting is on September 21st, located at the Golden Corral at 9 o'clock a.m. So I'm not going to read all these, but you get the idea. So that's the Braille document that I have, and so in a nutshell, that's basically how I would emboss a text if someone gave me some text, that's how I'd use it. I send it over to Braille Blaster, do whatever formatting I need to do, and send it over to this machine. So yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to demonstrate what happens when you print in graphics mode. So, and I'm not going to get into how I deal with making graphics. I may do that in a separate video or whatnot. But I'll show you what this thing does. You'll notice it prints slower in graphics mode, and the dots are going to be closer together. Now, I have this program called Copy To, which I can't seem to find where it is now. I got it from, I think it was the website of Dancing Dots. I won't have a link in the description because I can't find where I can get the program from, unfortunately. If anybody else has an idea, let me know. But basically what I have to do is I just highlight a file. It could be a .brf or a .vim file, anything that has to do with Braille graphics. And then what I would do is I would go into my context menu here with Windows Explorer. And then I would go to the Send To. It's basically very similar to if I was going to highlight a text file or a Word document file or anything to do with printing. I would just highlight it in the context menu of Windows Explorer and then point to Print and press Enter. It would send it straight to my ink printer. It's very similar in this situation. I have it set to send any raw data to the serial port that's installed on my computer, COM1. So I go to Send To. Send to sub menu, I hit N a couple times, I press Enter, and I press C. There's compressed zip folder, copy to COM1, and that's what I have it set for. And I could send any raw data to this machine in that way. So, so now I will go ahead and I'll print a couple of graphics files. So this one in particular is a graphic of the Liberty Bell. And so I'm going to print two versions. First, I'm going to print an outline version, and then I'm going to print a solid version that's all filled in and whatnot. So here we start with the outline version, and you'll notice at the beginning of both these files, I have regular text at the beginning. So it's just talking about what this is, Liberty Bell outline version, or Liberty Bell solid version. So yeah. So you'll hear it when it goes into graphics mode. Here we go. Now it's in graphics mode. All right, and then I'm not going to tear it off here just yet. So right there, so you've got the text here, says Liberty Bell outline version, and then right there is a little more flush towards the left side of the page here. It's an outline version of the Liberty Bell. Now again, this thing does 17 dots per inch graphics, which is standard for the classic, even the classic Romeo and Juliet enabling embossers. There are much more modern day embossers that do 25 dots per inch or 50 dots per inch, so the graphics are a lot better in those cases. And this does not do multi-dot height like your View Plus embossers would do, where they have multiple different dot heights for different color contrast. So the lighter the color, the less it punches into the paper, and the darker the color, the more it punches into the paper. But this does what it does. And so now I'm going to do the solid version of the Liberty Bell. All right, so now, 1 second, I'm gonna go to, just like normal, go to context menu. After the file's been highlighted, go to the context menu, go to send to, go down to copy to COM1, and press enter, and it will start printing. Here we go, Liberty Bell solid version. Now you'll notice this is going to be a bit even louder than that because of all the filling and whatnot. Here we go. And there you have it. So there it says here at the top, Liberty Bell solid version. And there it is right there, the solid version of the Liberty Bell. Hopefully nobody will, I live in an apartment, and maybe it's a little too early, so hopefully, these things are loud. So hopefully nobody's gonna try to knock on my door or whatever. It's like, hey, shut up. But that's it, that's all I need to print for now. So right there, there's a solid version. Hopefully you can see that of the Liberty Bell. All right, so now go ahead and eject this, forfeit it. I'm gonna tear it off. Try to tear it off carefully here. Sorry about that. I don't know why it stopped recording. Anyway, so now I have it torn off. So I'm gonna put it back into place. And then put it back to the A side, clears buffer, and that's it. So now I'm gonna go ahead and turn off the unit. And you notice how the fan, it slows down, takes a while for it to completely stop. So that's a good sign of a great motor here. So some final thoughts on the embosser here. The Telesensory Incorporated VersaPoint. I think it's a great unit for what it does. Some people might say, well, it doesn't do double-sided. And look, I get it. Double-sided is nice because, you know, as I believe I mentioned earlier, that double-sided, or also known as interpoint, means that it prints on both sides of the page simultaneously, again, which is great for textbooks or small booklets and whatnot, or restaurant menus and other types of commercial or professional documents. But if you don't really need to worry about double-sided, then that's okay. I mean, there's some instances when you may not want double-sided, and that's if you were having text and graphics in the same document, because it can run over into each other, in a sense, on both sides of the page. And when you're doing interpoint, you basically one side of the document is a teeny bit offset compared to the other side, and it has to do that for obvious reasons, because the Braille, it could really tear up the paper if you don't do that. I mean, there are machines out there that do double-sided, so if you wanted a double-sided embosser, you would look into one of those. And doesn't do manual single sheet feed, which is okay. I mean, that's not a big deal. So this thing does just single-sided, your standard tractor-fed paper, which is all right. 17 dots per inch graphics. I mean, it's good. I mean, obviously, the higher the definition of graphics, the better. But 17 dots per inch, it will do. I would say the two biggest things, in my opinion, that I don't like about this unit is that it does not have a built-in speech synthesizer like some of the classic enabling Romeo and Juliet embossers have Ichi Speaks, so the unit actually talks and whatnot, which is great for if you need to configure it for whatever reason. And same with units such as the Braille Blaster or any of the modern Index or Romeo and Juliet embossers today. They talk as well, and that's great. I wish that this unit had that, but it doesn't. But I mean, so if you had to go into its configuration menu, it's very quirky. You would have to turn the unit off and hold down one of the buttons, and you go through a series of like brailled dialogue of messages. So it would emboss the message and feed it up for you to read it to see what option you'd want to change, and it would retract it back into the unit and emboss the changed option, feed it back up so you can read what it says. A bit of an inconvenience, so if you don't have to mess with that on this unit, then why bother once you have it set. There is escape sequences that you can send to the unit, but unfortunately I had a chart of the escape sequences and I cannot find it. Unfortunately, I have lost it like an idiot. But I would say the biggest thing for me, in my opinion, is that it does not have a sleep mode. The older classic enabling embossers, as well as modern day devices, they have a sleep mode. Enabling technologies, they would call it energy star low power mode, which after 5 minutes or so of inactivity, it would enter energy star low power mode, and that means the fan would shut off. It'd be in a low powered state. But modern day embossers, they do a similar thing. This unit does not do that, unfortunately, so the fan would keep running constantly. So you would turn off the unit or turn it on as needed. So if there was a resurrected way of making a Model E, so this is Model D, but if someone were to make a Model E, the two biggest things, I think, possibly three, the two biggest things: number one, it would have a sleep mode. Number two, it'd have a built-in speech synthesizer so that it would talk as you set different settings. And number three, I could see higher resolution graphics. I mean, it doesn't have to have the multi-dot height like the View Plus embossers do, but at least 25 dots per inch would be great. That way you can emboss better looking graphics. But so again, sleep mode, speech synthesizer, and maybe higher definition graphics. So I mean, those are the three things that I would change with a Unit E. Oh, and as a bonus, one other thing I would add is USB connection. Again, it doesn't have to have Bluetooth and wireless connection. If you wanted to do that, you could probably hook it up to a some type of small little Raspberry Pi computer, or whatnot, some adapter that would convert it into a Bluetooth or wireless embosser. But USB would be great over even serial connection. Now, I wouldn't recommend a parallel connection. Like I said, parallel has been known to be, at least in my opinion, unreliable. But I've been successful with serial communication. And then finally, I would say the cool thing about this unit is there are units that print slower. This thing prints, when you consider it's 40 characters per line, 25 lines per page, which is the standard. It prints at 40 characters per second. And I did a little bit of recording of it once, and I tested it out. And the audio file was about 32 seconds in length. So you can basically round it down to 30 seconds if you wanted to. So when you consider that, with the speed of 40 characters per second, 40 characters per line, 25 lines per page, representing a standard size Braille page, this thing can print at 120 sheets of Braille per hour, which is really fantastic, honestly. There are units out there like the Braille Blaster that print at 15 characters per second. Now, granted, it prints at 11.5 by 11 inch paper, the narrow paper, so it prints about maybe 60 sheets of Braille per hour. And the nice thing about this unit, and like other machines, that have a way of setting top of form, it doesn't waste a sheet of paper, unlike the Braille Blazer that has a top of form setting but causes you to waste a sheet of paper, which is pretty pointless. But then they say with the Braille Blazer you could actually make it go the other way. So instead of going from front to back, you can have the paper go from back to front, which causes a lot of paper jams. So it's pretty pointless. So overall, it's a great unit. Maybe not for everybody because of the setup. Maybe people today who are less tech savvy might go for a smaller one of the View Plus embossers or whatnot. But if you could find one and you know how to use this thing, it's a great unit. I mean, it doesn't have the most bells and whistles, but it does what it does, and it does it fantastically, I think, in my opinion. Okay, that's it. I hope you guys enjoy and have enjoyed this, and let me know if you want to see anything else about this unit or how I do go about graphics, which I may do in the next video in regarding my own personal Braille transcription, if you will. Okay, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.